Hello. Um, this talk is going to be a bit unusual. I like to think I'm normally quite a bright, chirpy person, find humour in everything. I'll do my best. Saturday just gone, 2 days ago. It was going to be a nice day. Myself and my wife popped out in the morning. In the afternoon, we were going for lunch and meeting some of my close family, my parents and brother, in actual fact. We're going to have lunch, bit of a chat and a nice 2 or 3 hours out. That was the plan. And to be honest, it started off well. I got there, and my parents and brother turned up, and all was nice. We chatted for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, I don't know. To be honest, the whole day's a bit of a blur, but it was nice. And then suddenly, from out of nowhere, shortly after my wife arrived, funnily enough, it wasn't her fault, trust me, but I started to get immensely breathless, and it really did come out of nowhere. Phenomenally breathless, almost gasping for air. Now, I do have very mild asthma. I mean, phenomenally mild. I use an inhaler once in a blue moon. Can't even remember the last time I did, to be honest. But my wife carries one in her handbag just in case I need one, so I gently tapped her on the shoulder and asked her for the inhaler and promptly wandered outside the hostelry to inhale a bit, which I duly did. It didn't help, and the breathlessness spread down my body. I suddenly felt the severe urge to use the toilet. My heart was beginning to pound, and I just generally felt unwell. I went back into the pub, hostelry, visited the toilet, came back through and tried to make the best of it, made chit chat for seconds. If I'm honest, it wasn't long at all. I just knew I wouldn't be able to put off the fact that I genuinely felt awful. I went to the toilet yet again, came back, grabbed my coat, whispered in my wife's ear, "You stay, finish your lunch." She ignored it completely, but by that time I was already out the door. My heart was racing, I was sweating, I felt so hot. I couldn't breathe, I was gasping. And by the time I got home, I really did feel like shit, forgive my French. I could feel my heart pounding through my chest. My temperature was raising. It didn't matter what I did, sat down, stood up, I just felt so hot and clammy. And my chest was pounding. The pain in my chest was getting worse and worse and worse. And finally, I said to my wife, out of sheer fear, phone 111. Now, in Britain, that's an emergency phone number where you just speak to a doctor, basically, which my wife did. I did briefly, answering in monosyllabic tones. And eventually, they sent for an ambulance, saying I would need hospital treatment. And that was the beginning. The ambulance never arrived. They didn't have one, wouldn't have one for hours. My wife had to take me up there, and she couldn't get there quickly enough. She didn't know, but I was panicking. I knew in my heart of hearts, no pun intended, I was having a heart attack. And I was absolutely crapping myself. I just wanted my wife's foot to hit the accelerator and never come off until we got to the hospital car park. I was breathing, I was gasping for air. I couldn't sit still. My hands were all over the place. I was pulling fingers, I was touching myself. The entire journey in the car, I couldn't stop myself doing that. I was just constantly fingering myself with her missus. Panic was overwhelming me. The pain in my chest was overwhelming me. The innate desire to move and twitch and like tick was overwhelming me. And finally, we got to hospital. where I was seen after about a 10-minute wait and ushered off to a quiet room, which was basically an interview room waiting for a doctor to arrive. Lord knows how long we waited in that room. My brother turned up in the time it took us to see someone. He got a taxi and come straight up to the hospital about an hour after I'd last left him. I think we sat in the room for about 3 hours until eventually a nurse turned up, saw my breathing, gasping for breath, heard the story of my heart beating at pace, and told me I was having an anxiety attack. I wasn't having an anxiety attack, far from it. I know what an anxiety attack is. I know people who have them all the time. I wasn't having an anxiety attack, but I didn't know what the hell I was having, and I just wanted help because I still couldn't stop moving. Now, I have epilepsy, and it's been 18 years since my last generalised seizure. And a generalised seizure to me is like, hold a tuning fork and bang it. And then it shakes and shivers, and you listen to its monosyllabic tone until it finally dies down and it's still again, and you have calm and peace and tranquility. But now take the tuning fork, bang it, and instead of standing back and listening and watching, hold the fork. And you'll feel the vibration, you'll feel it within trying to escape through your hand. And that's what my entire body felt like. I was one enormous tuning fork trying to shake, trying to vibrate, trying to fit. I was trying to have a seizure, but my brain, the mixture of medication I take to prevent it from happening, obviously worked. Now, for 18 years, it's worked totally, completely. I've never had a generalised seizure in all that time. But this time, it's as if my body got a little bit further down the treadmill, if you will. And I knew I was seizuring without the actual seizure. I was still, but up here and in here, it was turmoil. Now, the doctor who told me I was having an anxiety attack told me I should take diazepam to calm me. Now, frankly, after about 4 hours, I'd have taken heroin. I'd have taken anything. But before that, I had a cannula fitted in my arm. I had 4 or 5 vials of blood taken out my arm. I had anti-sickness medication put into my arm because, my God, I felt sick. I felt so sick. And I felt sick for hours. All I wanted to do was vomit, and I couldn't. The anti-sickness worked. They then came out and gave me an ECG. I had to bare my fabulous body to the world. That's a joy to behold, I tell you. I was given an ECG. I was told I had an irregular heartbeat, like it was some sort of surprise. I was told that 4 years ago, never followed up on. I've got an irregular heartbeat. And how do I treat that? What do I do? Don't know, you tell me. Nobody's told me. It just kind of disappeared and came back, certainly in the doctor's notes. And all the while, I'm still breathing heavily, I'm gasping for breath, and I've taken diazepam now, and I'm waiting for the half an hour it would take to work. And meanwhile, as I'm gasping for breath and my body's trying to shake, my hands are all over the place and I'm twitching, and my wife sat next to me holding my hand, and my brother's sat in the corner trying to lighten the mood, I'm certain of two things. I'm either going to have a generalised seizure eventually, or my heart's going to give up and die. And when I was sat in that hospital, there was a split second where I didn't really care which way it went. I just wanted it to stop. And eventually, with the help of the diazepam, I assume it did stop. But by this time, we'd been in hospital 6.5 hours. In a waiting area, then in an interview room, then me lying on a trolley in a room attached to various wires, feeling like a slab of meat. But the upshot is, I don't know. I've got an irregular heartbeat, but I knew that anyway. But there was no explanation for the breathlessness, no explanation as to why or indeed if I had had some form of seizure. Nobody told me that. I'm just surmising myself. I'm guessing that's what has happened. Mainly because of how I felt before, and how the diazepam eventually relaxed me to such a state where I'd forgotten about it, and my body had ceased to tick and shake and shiver. But the day was terrifying, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. I wasn't having an anxiety attack. I was crapping myself. Undoubtedly. My wife, God bless her, I love her more than life itself. There aren't words in the dictionary to describe exactly how I feel for my wife. She was terrified. She was watching her husband clearly cacking himself and worried for what the future was going to bring. And at the stroke of midnight, I was sent home with my wife with no answers. I may have had a seizure. I may have had an anxiety attack. But I didn't have a heart attack, even though I was certain I was doing. Fortunately, the ECG, the vials of blood they took, showed that everything was normal and I was quote unquote fine, and I was allowed home. But I wasn't fine. Something was wrong, but we'll never know what. But I have to crack on again now, reliving the events of Saturday in my mind, knowing that that could happen again at any time. It probably will. Seizures do, they have a habit of striking when you least expect them. But I hope more than you can possibly imagine that that doesn't happen again, because frankly I'd have preferred to have had a full-blown generalised seizure. At least I'd have been unconscious. At least I'd have eventually passed out, and I'd have missed it all. I'd have woken up. It was terrifying, and I want to personally thank my wife for sitting through it with me, and I want to thank my own heart for keeping going. But I'll be making inquiries, I'll be seeing a doctor, I'll be asking for referrals, because I need answers. I'm at hospital again on Wednesday for a 2-hour breathing test to try and get to the bottom of what's wrong with my throat. But in the meantime, my brain's thrown another spanner in the works. But I'm still here. I'm back. I'm at home. I'm fighting off the after effects of it at the moment. I feel awful. I'm so drained. I'm so tired. I want to go to bed and stay there till 2018. But I have a life to live. I have a wife. Do you know, I'm going to do it. Oh, not to forget, I've got a cat to cuddle too. Speak to you soon, folks. Bye.